Part 1. You will hear a woman calling a restaurant to make a booking for a birthday celebration. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good afternoon. Riviera Restaurant, how may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for a small birthday celebration.
Certainly. Can I take your name first?
Yes, it's Emily Rowe. That's E-M-I-L-Y, then R-O-W-E.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. And what date are you thinking of?
The birthday is on the 18th of September, but that falls on a Wednesday this year, so we're planning the meal on the Saturday after, which should be the 21st.
All right, the 21st of September. And for how many guests?
It'll be for 8 people in total.
8? Noted. Now, about the time. Most of our birthday groups prefer to book around 7 in the evening. Would that suit you?
Actually, we'd like it a bit earlier, maybe 6:30 p.m. That way the kids don't get too tired.
No problem. Table for 8 at 6:30. Now, do you have a seating preference, inside or on the terrace?
I was thinking of the terrace, but September evenings can be chilly. Let's go indoors.
Good choice. And shall I note any dietary requirements?
Yes, please. One of the guests is vegetarian and another doesn't eat dairy.
Vegetarian, understood.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, would you like to bring your own birthday cake? Some people prefer that.
Actually, I heard you offer cakes.
Yes, we do. We can provide a chocolate cake or a fruit sponge.
Ooh, tricky. The birthday girl loves fruit, but most of the others prefer chocolate. Let's stick with chocolate cake. That's safer.
Great. We can prepare for that. There's a small fee of £18 for the cake.
That's fine.
Do you want any decorations for the table? Balloons, perhaps?
Yes, balloons sound fun, but keep it simple. Maybe gold and white colors.
Perfect. I'll note gold and white balloons. Finally, could I have your contact number in case we need to confirm anything?
Sure. It's 077-65-981-432.
Thank you. And how would you like to pay the deposit? We usually ask for £40 up front to secure large bookings.
Can I pay my card now over the phone?
Of course. I'll process that in a moment.
Wonderful. So just to double check, Saturday, 21st of September, table for 8, indoors, with a chocolate cake, balloons in gold and white, and I'll pay the deposit today.
That's correct. We look forward to seeing you then.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a lovely day.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 1. Part 2. You will hear a city officer giving a talk on road safety and traffic rules. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Officer Malik from the City Traffic Department. Thank you for joining this short session on road safety and traffic regulations. I'll go over some new rules, common problems we face, and practical tips for safer travel in our city. First of all, let's clear up a misconception. Many people believe the heaviest traffic in the city is during the evening rush at 6 p.m. Actually, our data shows that the peak is slightly earlier, around 5:15 p.m., when offices close and school pickups overlap. So, if you want to avoid jams, leave a little later if possible. Now, about speed limits. On highways, the limit remains 100 kilometers per hour. Within the city, many assume the general speed is 60. In fact, it's 50 kilometers per hour on most main roads. Residential streets are lower at 30. We're especially strict about school zones, where cameras monitor continuously. Next, public transport lanes. Some drivers still attempt to use the bus lanes, imagining it'll save a few minutes. What many don't realize is that the penalty was increased. It used to be 2,500 rupees, but this year it has doubled to 5,000 rupees if you're caught. Officers are now stationed at several key junctions to ensure the rule is followed. Parking is another issue. Many drivers still stop briefly on bridges or right outside hospitals, insisting it's only for 2 minutes. But these are strict no parking zones, and vehicles left there are towed without warning. Now, in the past, people commonly used the airport car park, since it was the largest available and relatively close to the city center. However, with airport expansion, a large section of that parking has been closed to the public. As a result, the city authorities decided to build 2 new underground car parks near the railway station, a facility many drivers still don't know exists.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Motorcyclists, please listen carefully. Helmets are not optional, and it's not enough to carry one. You must wear it properly fastened. Last year, 42% of road deaths involved motorbikes, most of them without helmets. So enforcement will be stricter this year. Pedestrians also need attention. Many cross where they like, ignoring footbridges and zebra crossings. We're launching an awareness campaign next month with posters, school visits, and radio messages. Remember, pedestrian negligence is a major cause of accidents. Now, let me tell you about new technology. Cameras are being upgraded to detect not just speeding, but also phone use while driving. Offenders will get instant SMS fines linked to their car registration. As for public complaints, the most frequent one is about heavy vehicles, trucks entering residential areas late at night. From next Monday, trucks will be restricted to the ring road after 9 p.m., instead of coming through inner neighborhoods. And finally, for those of you who want to learn more, our department has launched a mobile application. It shows live traffic updates, accident alerts, and parking availability. Many assume it's only for Android phones, but it's available for both Android and iOS. You can download it free of charge. That concludes my talk. Please remember, safe driving isn't just about avoiding fines. It's about protecting lives. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll spread the word to your families and colleagues.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 2. Part 3. You will hear a conversation between a professor and two students about their study on city parks and social behavior. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 25.
All right, Anna and Luke, let's go over your research proposal once more before you submit it. I know you're looking at urban green spaces, but I want to be certain you've tightened the focus.
Yes, Professor. Initially, we planned to cover every city park in the region, but after your feedback, we've narrowed it to medium-sized neighborhood parks.
Exactly. We cut out the really large national parks and also avoided tiny playgrounds because they distort the data.
That's sensible, but tell me, why medium-sized?
Because they represent the kind of spaces most residents actually use daily, enough for walking, jogging, and small events, but not so vast that they become tourist attractions.
Good. Now, what's the central research question?
We're examining how the design of these parks, like benches, walking tracks, or play equipment, affect social interaction among visitors.
Some people argue design has little influence, that it's mainly location. Did you account for that?
We did. We're including a comparative angle. We'll measure both the accessibility of each park and the design features, then see which factor correlates more with social use.
Excellent. How will you collect your data?
Through direct observation. But not just sitting around, we've created a coding sheet to record how often people talk, exercise together, or attend community events.
And we'll supplement that with short interviews. Though we considered surveys, we thought people might exaggerate, so we're sticking with shorter, spontaneous responses.
I agree. Spontaneity often reveals more. But remember, ethical clearance is essential. Did you arrange consent procedures?
Yes, interviewees will sign a one-page consent form. For observations, since it's public space, no consent is needed, but we'll keep anonymity.
Fine. Now, Luke, I noticed you wanted to compare weekday versus weekend use. Why?
Because usage patterns differ. On weekdays, parks attract mostly elderly, like parents with young children. Weekends draw larger groups, friends, sports teams, family picnics. The contrast might highlight different social functions.
Fair point.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
But that increases your workload. Are you confident you can manage the data?
We divided tasks. Luke records weekday observations, I'll handle weekends. Then we'll cross-check each other's notes to reduce bias.
Good system. Now, one more concern. How exactly will you analyze the data once you've gathered it?
We'll use both descriptive statistics and thematic coding. For example, we'll calculate percentages of people engaging in group activities, but also identify recurring themes in interviews.
Very well. And funding.
We applied for a small departmental grant, mainly to cover recording devices and printing.
Remember, small costs add up. Transport, refreshments, even batteries. Did you budget those?
Initially, we forgot, but we've revised the budget after your reminder last week.
Excellent. Now, one last thing. Why do you think this project matters?
Because city councils often debate whether to invest in design features. If we can show that even a few benches or paths dramatically increase community bonding, it strengthens the case for funding.
And on a personal level, urban loneliness is a rising problem. Parks could be a simple solution, if designed right.
Precisely. That's the kind of applied outcome reviewers want. All right, polish the draft and hand it in by Friday.
That is the end of Part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 3. Part 4. You're going to hear a lecture about how the electric light bulb was invented. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 35. Now listen and answer questions 31 to 35.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to trace the story of one of the most influential inventions in human history, the light bulb. Now, when we say the inventor of the light bulb, most people immediately think of Thomas Edison. But the reality is more complex. Several inventors before him had experimented with ways of producing light electrically, though their designs were impractical. For instance, Humphrey Davy, in the early 1800s, created what's known as an arc lamp. It produced intense light by connecting carbon rods to a battery. It worked, but it was far too bright and burned out quickly. Later, Warren de la Rue, a British scientist, tried enclosing a coiled platinum filament in a vacuum tube. Technically brilliant, but platinum was so expensive that nobody could afford such a lamp. So what made Edison's lamp revolutionary? He focused less on a single spark of genius and more on systematic testing. His team in Menlo Park tested thousands of materials for filaments: bamboo, cotton, even hair. Eventually, carbonized bamboo lasted over 1,000 hours. That was the breakthrough. Still, a bulb wasn't useful without a system to power it. Edison also designed generators, wiring, and switches so the lamp became part of a network, not just a gadget. In 1882, he opened the first commercial power station in New York, lighting up a square mile of the city. But Edison wasn't working alone. In Britain, Joseph Swan developed a similar carbon filament bulb. Rather than fight endless lawsuits, the two men formed a joint company. Swan concentrated on Europe, Edison on the US, and together they spread electric lighting rapidly.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 36 to 40. Now listen and answer questions 36 to 40.
Now, let's look at improvements. Edison's carbon filament was effective, but not the end of the story. Around 1906, engineers began using tungsten filaments, which could withstand far higher temperatures and gave off a wider, steadier light. Tungsten is still used today. Then came a second leap: fluorescent lamps. Unlike bulbs with a glowing filament, these relied on mercury vapor inside a tube. They used far less energy, but many people disliked their cold bluish glow. And of course, in recent decades, we've seen LEDs, light-emitting diodes. These tiny semiconductors are incredibly efficient, long-lasting, and can even change color. LEDs now illuminate everything from smartphones to city streets. But beyond the technology itself, the light bulb carried social consequences. Factories, once limited to daylight, could now run night shifts, greatly increasing productivity. Shops extended opening hours, streets became safer, and leisure activities such as evening reading became common. Yet, critics at the time worried that constant light might disrupt natural sleep patterns and blur the boundary between day and night. So, to conclude, the bulb was not the work of one man, but of many contributors. Edison's genius lay in persistence and systems thinking, but others like Davy, Swan, and later innovators shaped what we now take for granted. And perhaps the real lesson is that invention is rarely a single event. It's a chain of gradual improvements, often across continents and decades.
That is the end of part 4.